We watched The Blob, good lord, from 1958. That's right, it's from 1958. It lasts 1 hour 22 minutes. Stars Steve McQueen, yet, as a 16 or 17 year old guy. I think he was about 29. The movie opens with some 50s style music, bit jaunty for a horror film. It's like, beware of the blood, beware of the blood.
Beware of the blob, it creeps and leaps.
Yeah, something like that. So we see a couple kissing, Steve McQueen and his beau. He's gone to jail. No, right. She's about 17, he's supposed to be about 17, I think. Who's he kidding? Right, let it go, let it go. It's the 50s, they found a makeout spot. Ooh. And they see a meteor flying through the sky. Yeah. So like, what was that? Let's go investigate. Yeah, as you would. But where the meteorite has crashed is on this old guy's land. So the old guy is obviously there well before them. He goes out and he sees the little meteorite and he picks up a stick and pokes at it. Yeah, and it cracks open. And this like slime, this blood, if you will, it comes out of the meteorite and it climbs up the stick and it sticks to the old guy's hand and he can't get it off.
Get it off me! Get it off me!
No, that's right. And his dog is just sitting watching like, what's going on? Now Steve McQueen is playing a guy called Steve Andrews. Yeah. And his girlfriend is Jane. That's right. They decide, let's forget the meteorite. Let's just go and have a sandwich. Yeah, because they're almost here the meteorite crashes and they're like, oh, we'll never find it. And then they're driving back to town for a sandwich and they almost hit the old guy.
Get out of the road, you lunatic!
Yeah, they do. He's in some state. They take him into the car, they head back to town and go to the doctor's office. Now the doctor is just about to leave town for the weekend. He's going to a conference. Yeah, so he says. He was going to a conference. But they managed to catch him just in time. He says, okay, bring the guy in. I'll have a look at him. They go into the doctor's surgery and the doctor sees the old man has slime covering his hand. Yeah, it's disgusting. And why not take him to hospital? Well, I guess the doctor was closer, I don't know. But anyway, Jane and Steve decide to head back out to where the meteorite crashed to have a proper look this time. Yeah, not just be like, forget it. Yeah. And just as they're about to leave town, they're sitting at a red light and a group of hoodlums drive up beside them. Yeah, and they're like, listen mate, listen Steve, let's have a race. My car against your car. And Steve's like, okay. But then he tricks them. Yeah, he tricks them because he sees the police are sitting close by. So when the traffic light turns from red to green, Steve floors it, but in reverse. Yeah. So the guys go flying along and the police are like, hi, stop. Pretty cool trick. Yeah, it's quite smart. Now Steve happens to know the cop, Dave.
What's this all about?
Hi, Dave.
Yeah, Dave the cop. So they have a big chat. Dave puts the world to rights, tells him, you can't be doing this, can't be doing that. Make sure you behave, it's getting late, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's all very jovial. And then Steve's like, starts a little chat with the hoodlums. And they're all like great mates now. Yeah. They're really good friends now. Yeah, it's weird as. So yeah, Steve's spending his time talking to the cop, talking to these new mates. Yeah, there's an old man needing help. What are you doing?
The clock is ticking.
Eventually he says, right, I have to go to this old man's house to look for a meteorite. Yeah. So the other guy's like, well, we'll come with you. So they all drive off and head to the old man's place. While they're heading there, the doctor is still examining the old man and he thinks the slime on the old man's hand is a blister. Yeah, it kind of looks like that. Yeah. So he sees it spreading, this blister, and he identifies it as a parasite. Yeah. And then they see Steve and Jane and all these new guys and they're at the old man's house. They don't find much, that they find the dog. So Steve and Jane are like, let's take the dog. Make sure it's okay. Yeah, that's nice. Yeah. Yeah, they're looking after the dog for now. So Steve and Jane head back to town. Yeah, so did the gang. The gang are like, right, you're going to the cinema to watch a horror movie. Yeah, they've done their part.
You're on your own.
Back at the surgery, Nurse Kate comes in. The doctor has called her in for an emergency and the old man by now is completely a blob. Yeah, he's been swallowed up diet, engulfed diet, absorbed diet, eaten diet. We get the point. So the doctor and Kate decide, let's throw acid on it. So they do that. It has no effect. Not. and then it just eats up Kate, just swallows her, engulfs her. Alright, we get it. Steve and Jane return, and it's just in time for Steve to look in the window and see the doctor being eaten up. Yeah, the doctor tried to shoot the blood with a shotgun.
Big mistake.
So the blood just swallows him up, and Steve sees it. So Steve rushes across to the police station. There are 3 cops there, and they think it's a wind-up. They think he's just playing a trick on them. Yeah. Eventually, they go across the road to the doctor's surgery to have a look. Yeah. Better sorry than safe, I guess. Yeah, they don't really seem to be in a rush. So they go to the surgery, break in. They find no sign of a blob, no sign of the doctor, no sign of Nurse Kate. No, and then the nosy neighbour appears. Mrs. Twerter. She appears and she's like, what are you doing? The doctor is out of town for the weekend. He's gone to a conference. I know, because he left me in charge of his keys. Don't listen to these foolish kids. Could she be working with the blob? Or be the blob itself? No. She's just an interfering old woman. We're back at the police station and Jane and Steve's fathers arrive. Uh-oh.
You're screwed.
You're in trouble, kids. Yeah, so Steve and Jane are taken home to their respective homes and told go to bed. Stop being silly. However, during the night, Steve and Jane both decide to sneak out of their houses. So they sneak out of their houses, they meet up, and they drive to the cinema, and they pull out the guys from the gang. Yeah, the hoodlums. Yeah, their new mates. They go and get them and their dates to leave the movie. I would be annoyed. I'd like to watch the end of this movie, please. Steve tells the gang what he saw, what's been happening. He says the adults don't believe us. Now, during this, Jane and Steve spot the little dog that they found. Yeah, because apparently they just took it to town and then left it to its own devices. I guess so. But they see it runs into a supermarket. They run after it, and the blob is in this supermarket. They have to escape from it. That is blocking the exit. So, Jane gets a fright and runs off and hides. Yeah. And then Steve's about to be eaten up by the blob, and he just vaults a 10-foot high shelf. No bother for a 29-year-old teenager. Yeah. So they manage to get into this room. Steve and Jane hide in this room and close the door, and it turns out it's the freezer of the supermarket. Yeah. And the blood starts to come under the door. And then it backs off. It's like, oh no, I'm not going in there. And it goes off. And Jane says, what about the little dog? And Steve's like, oh well, it's been eaten up. Yeah, poor dog. Just left to be swallowed up by the blob.
Not a dog!
I mean, we do hear it barking outside the freezer door, wanting in. And then suddenly, you don't hear any barking. Now, Steve's new friends, they run off to the police station to get help. But again, the cops don't believe a word they're saying. Not. One of the cops is like so anti-teen. He's like, oh, I hate these teenagers. They need to go to war to see what it's like. Now they're looking at the entire town. They woke up the whole town this time. And again, no one believes a word they're saying. Steve holds court in amongst the whole rabble. He speaks to everyone. He says, listen, there's this thing going around. It's a big slimy blob. It's eating everyone up. And yeah, and no one believes him except Dave.
Hi, Dave.
The cop. For some reason, he's like, oh, I believe you, Steve. You crazy nan. So Dave does what any believer would do and sends the crowd home. Go back to your dead folks, he says. Nothing to worry about, even though I believe there's a deadly slimy blob coming round eating everyone. And dogs. While this is going on, the blob enters the cinema. Through the vents. Yeah, it goes into the projection booth and eats up the projectionist. And then it goes into the cinema and eats everyone up. Well, a few people, because you see people running out. Yeah, this is a pretty iconic scene. Everyone running out of the cinema and the blob chasing after them. And by this time, it's massive. It's huge. It's gigantic. It's big. Now, most people are back home, despite the hundreds of young people running out of a cinema. Steve and Jane hide in the little diner. Yeah. And it's just them and the owners and Jane's little brother who's like 7. So the cops try to surround the diner and they bring in the army. Yeah. And eventually they decide, let's shoot the tower lines. I did it. So they shoot the tower lines. Yeah, thinking they'll zap it and kill it. But the power lines fall on it and they do nothing. Yep. Nothing at all.
Nothing at all. Nothing at all.
Well, not quite nothing at all. Yeah, that's true. Because actually the tower lines, they set the diner on fire. So as if Steve and Jane and the owners, the nice older couple who own the diner, and the little boy, as if they weren't in enough danger, now they're also on fire. But they decide, let's at least try to put the fire out. The owner appears with a fire extinguisher, so Steve blasts it against the fire. Yeah, and he notices when he blasts it against the fire, it also hits the blood, and the blood backs off. It doesn't like the cold. The CO2 from the fire extinguisher repels it, and that's how it didn't chase on in the freezer of the supermarket. It doesn't like the cold. We've got on, lads. Steve manages to communicate this to Dave, and he says, get all the CO2 you can find in town, all the fire extinguishers, all the cold air you can find in town, so everyone in town gets a fire extinguisher. And eventually, with the whole town surrounding the blob and blasting it with CO2, it freezes into a solid mass. Yeah, and then the military come along, and they take it up in a helicopter, and they drop it in the Arctic. Well, at the end they say, do you think that's it? Do you think it's gone forever? And Dave says, probably not. Someone else will stumble upon it, and it'll be someone else's problem. It's a cheery thought. So that's the Blob, the original version. There is a remake, which we'll be discussing at some point. Really? Yep. Is it a sequel? I don't think so. I think it's just a straight remake. But we'll watch it and find out. Okay. Please hit like, please subscribe, give us a follow. Go on. We'll see you next time. To your dog.